we want to have a conversation a little bit before we close about why the conversation about psychedelics is relevant and important in our lives right now. That's not to mean that we should all be taking it necessarily, but that it has a role to play to, I think, make it possible for us to survive the challenges that we have coming towards us in terms of an ecological collapse, slow motion destruction of life and the planet, and really the sixth extinction, which has been now labeled officially, the Anthropocene. We all need help. We need tools that will allow us to more rapidly and profoundly change consciousness. And I think psychedelics is a part of that mix, a part of that toolkit. So it's important to talk about it, to raise it out of this hedonistic silliness and into the level of seriousness and importance and intention that it really needs to be looked at in. So that's one of the reasons that I'm attracted to the idea of bringing together Buddhism, which is a time-tested ethical system, in conjunction with psychedelics in a serious and purposed way, to examine them both together and to look at the roots of both, in a sense, also. The roots of their conjunction was interesting because it's really the same people who really talked about Buddhism and psychedelics in this culture. The same cast of characters, whether it be Allen Ginsberg or Alan Watts or Jack Kerouac. I mean, there's a host of them. Ram Dass. They both spoke about their experimentation in psychedelics and also their study of Buddhism and why that made a difference in their life. So I went to a retreat about, I think it was about 15 years ago in Plum Village with Thich Nhat Hanh. How many know about Thich Nhat Hanh? He's a great Zen master, still with us. He had a practice center. He's Vietnamese, but he had a practice center in France and called Plum Village. And I started going there with my family every year. It was just one of the things I really look forward to every year, to be exposed to his teachings and his style of teaching. He had a way of convincing you that he was really walking his talk. He was really living the teaching, and you were immediately impressed by that, and then were much more open to what he had to say. And we had a Dharma Talk, which is not just an ordinary talk. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, he really talks, as I mentioned, in that way where you can feel what he's speaking about. And after the Dharma Talk, there was a practice of dividing into discussion groups. Not an ordinary discussion group where everybody just bursts out with what they want to say, but rather almost a meditative sharing of thinking from the heart, or speaking from the heart. So people would have their moment to say something, and there'd be some silence, and then another person would speak, no cross-talking, and they'd basically discuss various themes that were assigned to each group to talk about in relation to what the Dharma Talk was about. So in this particular instance, the theme was drugs. So I thought, okay, everyone's going to sit around and talk about how bad drugs are, and they went there and then they stopped going there, and now they found Buddhism. And actually it was quite different than that. Even those who may have intended to take that line got carried away with their experiences and discussing it and talking about it, like a lid had been opened on something that had been covered up for a long time. And they were able to talk about this amazing transition that it signaled in some cases. In some cases it was a frivolous experience, hallucinatory entertainment of some kind. But in most cases it was, you could tell that this had a role to play in their coming to Buddhism. And I thought it was amazing. I mean, really, without exception, there was about 20 people in this particular group. So that really impressed me. And then at another retreat in California at Spirit Rock, I had the opportunity to hear Jack Kornfield, who's a very respected Buddhist teacher, talk about his LSD trip. Who'd have thought? I mean, it was kind of amazing how open he was about it, and quite clearly describing his LSD trip, how it really prepared in some way his mind to adopt a philosophy that really goes against the grain in terms of our style of living and our ideas. And so that really impressed me also. And then finally, another retreat at Tassajara Zen Center, which is crammed into a crevice of a mountain, and there's not a lot to do there other than sit. And So I found something else to do, and I went into the lunchroom and got a hold of the guest book and was flipping through it, and I noticed this, well, going back 2 years, I noticed this drawing of a pack of rolling papers, and it was really beautifully hand-drawn and zigzag on it, you know, and then underneath he wrote, well, I didn't miss it nearly as much as I thought I would, meaning he was, you know, okay, just meditating, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. He gave up zigzag for Zen. And then I went, oh, Zig Zag Zen. And then I knew there was a book, because until there's a title, it isn't real for me. I was toying with this idea, but then the title came to me, and then I knew it was real. So that's a little. Well, that was a pleasure, and Rick, I'm so glad that you're here, and I invite you all to learn more about the work that Rick is doing with MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, and also Roland Griffiths is doing a very interesting study with long-term meditators, introducing psilocybin to them, and in fact he's looking for long-term meditators who want to be part of that study. So if anybody is interested, that's an opportunity too. So thank you again, Rick. I wanted to read this letter from Albert Hoffman, a very relatively brief letter that he wrote when he was 101 years old. Albert Hoffman, in case anyone doesn't know, was the discoverer, in a sense, of LSD, and he wrote as follows: alienation from nature and the loss of the experience of being part of the living creation is the greatest tragedy of our materialistic era. It is the causative reason for ecological devastation and climate change. Therefore, I attribute absolute highest importance to consciousness change. I regard psychedelics as catalyzers for this. They are tools which are guiding our perception towards other deeper areas of human perception, human existence, so that we again become aware of our spiritual essence. Psychedelic experiences in safe settings can help our consciousness open to this sensation of being one with nature. LSD and related substances are not drugs in the usual sense, but are part of sacred substances which have been used for thousands of years in ritual settings. The classic psychedelics, like LSD, psilocybin, and mescaline, are characterized by the fact that they are neither addictive nor toxic. It is my greatest concern to separate psychedelics from the ongoing debates about drugs and to highlight the tremendous potential for these substances for self-awareness as an adjunctive therapy and for fundamental research into the human mind. It is my wish that a modern Ulysses will emerge in which seeking humans can learn to have transcendent experiences with sacred substances in a safe setting. I am convinced that these soul-opening, mind-revealing substances will find their appropriate place in our society and in our culture. Isn't that amazing? So, in addition to wonderful essays by so many thinkers, and I'm delighted to show you this page with Suki Barber's work, and also delighted to say she's here with us tonight. Thank you for coming, Suki. So we're going to stay